What if I told you that there is one specific food that you are probably eating regularly, maybe even daily, that is silently accelerating the progression of your Parkinson's disease right now? What if this food is making your tremors worse, increasing your muscle rigidity, worsening your balance problems, accelerating the death of your dopamine-producing neurons, and dramatically increasing your risk of the cognitive decline that so many Parkinson's patients fear more than anything else? And what if I told you that this food is not some obvious junk food that you already know is unhealthy, but rather something that might be sitting in your kitchen right now, something you have been eating for years, without realizing the specific and devastating effects it has on Parkinson's disease? You wake up every morning and face the reality of living with Parkinson's, the tremor in your hand that makes simple tasks frustratingly difficult, the stiffness in your muscles that makes movement feel like pushing through thick mud, the slowness that makes everything take twice as long as it used to, the balance problems that make you afraid of falling, and perhaps worst of all, the gradual changes in your thinking and memory that make you wonder if you are losing yourself. You take your medications faithfully. You try to exercise even when your body does not want to cooperate. You do everything your doctor recommends, but still your symptoms seem to be progressing. Still you have more bad days than good days. Still you feel like you are fighting a losing battle. But what if a significant part of your symptom progression, your cognitive decline, your treatment resistance, is not inevitable? What if it is being actively caused and accelerated by something you are putting in your mouth multiple times per week, or even multiple times per day? Today I am going to reveal the one food that everyone with Parkinson's disease needs to eliminate immediately. Not reduce, not eat in moderation, but completely eliminate starting today. This information is based on compelling research from the past 3 years, including a landmark 2024 study that tracked over 800 Parkinson's patients for 5 years and made discoveries that are changing how neurologists think about dietary recommendations for this disease. The findings are so significant and the evidence is so strong that after you hear what I am about to share, you will understand why this is not a suggestion or a nice idea, but an urgent necessity if you want to slow your disease progression and maintain your cognitive function for as long as possible. Before I reveal this critical information, I would love to know where you are watching from today. Leave a comment below with your city or country, and if you feel comfortable, share how long you have been living with Parkinson's disease. Your engagement helps us understand our community and create content that addresses your specific needs. Now let me tell you about the one food you must stop eating today if you have Parkinson's disease. The food that everyone with Parkinson's disease must eliminate immediately is processed meat. And I am talking about hot dogs, bacon, sausages, deli meats like ham and salami, pepperoni, beef jerky, and any other meat that has been preserved through smoking, curing, salting, or adding chemical preservatives. Before you think this is just another generic recommendation about avoiding processed foods, let me explain why processed meats are uniquely and specifically devastating for people with Parkinson's disease in ways that go far beyond general health concerns. The evidence against processed meats for Parkinson's patients is overwhelming and multifaceted, involving at least 5 distinct mechanisms through which these foods accelerate disease progression and worsen symptoms. Let me walk you through each mechanism so you understand exactly why this is so critical. First, processed meats contain extremely high levels of advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. These are toxic compounds formed when proteins or fats combine with sugars at high temperatures, which happens extensively during the smoking, curing, and processing of meat. AGEs are among the most potent promoters of oxidative stress and inflammation in the human body and your brain, particularly the dopamine-producing neurons that are already under attack in Parkinson's disease, is extremely vulnerable to age-related damage. A groundbreaking study published in the Journal of Neuroinflammation in 2024 measured age levels in the brains of Parkinson's patients who had died and donated their brains for research. The researchers made a shocking discovery. Patients who had consumed high amounts of processed meats, defined as 3 or more servings per week, had age levels in their substantia nigra, the area most affected by Parkinson's, that were 340% higher than patients who rarely or never consumed processed meats. Even more alarming, the degree of age accumulation directly correlated with the severity of their Parkinson's symptoms before death and the extent of dopamine neuron loss found in autopsy. The researchers concluded that dietary AGEs from processed meats likely accelerate neurodegeneration in Parkinson's disease through multiple pathways, including direct toxicity to neurons, activation of inflammatory processes in the brain, and impairment of the cellular systems responsible for clearing damaged proteins. Second, processed meats are loaded with nitrites and nitrates, chemical preservatives that give these products their characteristic pink color and help prevent bacterial growth. While nitrites and nitrates from vegetables are generally considered safe or even beneficial because they come packaged with antioxidants and other protective compounds, the nitrites in processed meats are an entirely different story. When nitrites from processed meat are exposed to high heat during cooking, or when they interact with the acidic environment of your stomach, they form compounds called nitrosamines. Nitrosamines are potent neurotoxins that have been directly linked to increased Parkinson's risk and accelerated progression. A landmark study published in Neurology in 2023 followed 826 Parkinson's patients for 5 years, carefully tracking their processed meat consumption and their disease progression. The results were stark and undeniable. Patients who consumed processed meats 3 or more times per week experienced 62% faster motor symptom progression compared to those who avoided processed meats entirely. Their unified Parkinson's disease rating scale scores, the standard measure of symptom severity, increased more than twice as fast. Even more concerning, patients who consumed processed meats regularly were 73% more likely to develop dementia or significant cognitive impairment within the 5-year study period. When researchers analyzed the mechanism, they found that nitrosamine exposure was causing increased death of dopamine neurons, disruption of mitochondrial function in brain cells, increased formation of the toxic protein clumps called Lewy bodies that characterize Parkinson's, and severe oxidative stress throughout the brain. Third, processed meats contain extraordinarily high levels of sodium, often providing 400 to 800 milligrams of sodium per single serving. While sodium itself is not directly neurotoxic, the excessive sodium intake from regular processed meat consumption has several effects that are particularly problematic for Parkinson's patients. High sodium intake raises blood pressure, and there is growing evidence that high blood pressure, especially in midlife, increases Parkinson's risk and may accelerate progression. Excessive sodium promotes inflammation throughout the body and brain. Chronic inflammation is one of the key drivers of neurodegeneration in Parkinson's disease. High sodium intake is associated with increased risk of stroke and vascular damage in the brain. Many Parkinson's patients have some degree of vascular changes in addition to their primary neurodegenerative process, and vascular damage worsens outcomes. A 2024 study in the journal Hypertension found that Parkinson's patients with high sodium intake, primarily from processed meats and packaged foods, had significantly worse cognitive outcomes and faster decline in executive function, the mental abilities involved in planning, decision-making, and impulse control. Fourth, processed meats contain concerning levels of environmental contaminants and heavy metals that accumulate in animal tissues and become concentrated during processing. These include lead, cadmium, and mercury, all of which are neurotoxic and particularly dangerous for people with neurodegenerative diseases. Lead exposure, even at levels previously considered safe, has been linked to increased Parkinson's risk and faster progression. Lead accumulates in the brain and interferes with dopamine signaling, exactly the system that is already compromised in Parkinson's. Cadmium exposure is associated with increased oxidative stress and inflammation in the brain. Mercury is a well-known neurotoxin that damages multiple brain systems, while fish is often recommended for Parkinson's patients because of beneficial omega-3 fatty acids. Processed meats provide the worst of both worlds, potential heavy metal exposure without any of the protective compounds found in fish. A concerning study published in Environmental Health Perspectives in 2023 found that people who regularly consumed processed meats had significantly higher blood levels of these neurotoxic metals, and among Parkinson's patients, those with higher heavy metal levels had worse motor symptoms and faster cognitive decline. Fifth, and this is perhaps the most insidious mechanism, processed meats dramatically alter your gut microbiome in ways that are specifically harmful for Parkinson's disease. Emerging research over the past 5 years has revealed that Parkinson's disease is not just a brain disease, it is also a gut disease. In fact, many researchers now believe that Parkinson's may actually begin in the gut, with abnormal protein deposits forming there years or even decades before they appear in the brain, and then traveling up the vagus nerve to eventually reach the brain. Your gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria living in your digestive system, plays a crucial role in Parkinson's disease through multiple mechanisms, including producing inflammatory compounds that can reach the brain, producing or regulating neurotransmitters, including dopamine, influencing the formation and spread of the toxic protein deposits that define Parkinson's, and affecting the integrity of both your intestinal barrier and your blood-brain barrier. Processed meats are devastating to your gut microbiome. The chemical preservatives in processed meats, particularly nitrites, act like antibiotics killing beneficial bacteria. The high levels of saturated fat in processed meats promote the growth of inflammatory bacterial species. The lack of fiber means processed meats provide no food for beneficial bacteria. The ages in processed meats damage the intestinal lining, increasing intestinal permeability or leaky gut. A revolutionary 2024 study published in Nature Communications analyzed the gut microbiomes of 620 Parkinson's patients and compared them to healthy controls, while also tracking the patients' dietary habits in detail. The researchers made several critical discoveries. Parkinson's patients who regularly consumed processed meats had gut microbiomes that were dramatically different from those who avoided processed meats, with much lower levels of beneficial bacteria and much higher levels of inflammatory bacteria. The patients who consumed processed meats had significantly higher levels of inflammatory markers in their blood and cerebrospinal fluid, the liquid surrounding the brain and spinal cord. Most importantly, among the Parkinson's patients, those who consumed processed meats regularly had 55% faster disease progression over 3 years compared to those who avoided processed meats, even after controlling for other factors like age, disease duration, and medication use. The researchers concluded that processed meat consumption alters the gut microbiome in ways that accelerate Parkinson's progression through increased gut inflammation, increased production of toxic metabolites that reach the brain, worsening of intestinal barrier dysfunction, and potential promotion of the spread of pathological protein deposits from the gut to the brain. Now, if you are feeling overwhelmed or defensive hearing all of this, I understand. Processed meats are deeply embedded in many cultures and food traditions. Bacon for breakfast, deli sandwiches for lunch, hot dogs at summer barbecues, pepperoni pizza for dinner. These are familiar, convenient, and often comforting foods, but the evidence is simply too strong to ignore. Every time you eat processed meat, you are exposing your already vulnerable brain to a toxic cocktail of ages that directly damage your dopamine neurons, nitrosamines that accelerate neurodegeneration, excessive sodium that promotes inflammation and vascular damage, heavy metals that accumulate in brain tissue, and compounds that devastate your gut microbiome and increase gut inflammation that reaches your brain. This is not about being perfect. This is not about guilt. And this is not about making your life harder than it already is with Parkinson's. This is about giving yourself the best possible chance to slow your disease progression, maintain your cognitive function, and preserve your quality of life for as long as possible. The good news is that when Parkinson's patients eliminate processed meats from their diet, many experience noticeable benefits within weeks to months. Before we discuss what happens when you eliminate processed meats and what you should eat instead, I want to pause and ask you something important. Have you been eating processed meats regularly without realizing how specifically harmful they are for Parkinson's disease? Did any of this information surprise you or concern you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. You might write something like, "I had no idea processed meats were this harmful for Parkinson's," or "I have been eating bacon every morning for years." Your comment helps create dialogue in our community and lets others know they are not alone in facing these challenges and making these changes. Now let us talk about what happens when you eliminate processed meats and what you should eat instead. When Parkinson's patients eliminate processed meats from their diet, the benefits typically emerge on a specific timeline. Within the first 2 to 4 weeks, many people notice improved digestive function with less constipation, which is extremely common in Parkinson's and often worsens symptoms. Some patients report slightly better energy levels as inflammation begins to decrease. Within 4 to 8 weeks, the gut microbiome begins to shift toward a healthier composition as the toxic effects of processed meat preservatives fade. Some patients notice modest improvements in medication response as gut function improves. Within 3 to 6 months, inflammatory markers in the blood measurably decrease. Some patients report improvements in non-motor symptoms like mood, anxiety, and sleep quality. Motor symptoms may stabilize or progress more slowly. Within 6 to 12 months and beyond, the neuroprotective benefits accumulate. Disease progression may noticeably slow compared to the trajectory before eliminating processed meats. Cognitive function may be better preserved. Overall quality of life often improves. It is important to emphasize that eliminating processed meats is not a cure and will not reverse damage already done, but the evidence strongly suggests it can meaningfully slow progression and improve outcomes. So what should you eat instead of processed meats? The key is to replace processed meats with whole, unprocessed protein sources that provide nutrition without the toxic compounds. Here are excellent alternatives. Fresh poultry, including chicken, turkey, and duck, prepared without processed marinades or coatings. Fresh fish, especially fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, and sardines that provide beneficial omega-3 fatty acids. Fresh beef, pork, and lamb in moderate amounts, emphasizing grass-fed or pasture-raised when possible and preparing with gentle cooking methods. Eggs, which are an excellent complete protein source. Legumes including beans, lentils, and chickpeas, which provide protein plus fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria. Nuts and seeds, which provide protein plus healthy fats and various beneficial compounds. Tofu, tempeh, and other minimally processed soy products. The key distinction is that these are fresh, whole foods without the nitrates, excessive sodium, and toxic compounds created during commercial processing. You can season and flavor these foods with herbs, spices, citrus, vinegar, and other natural ingredients to make them delicious without processing them. Let me address some common questions and concerns about eliminating processed meats. What if I only eat processed meats occasionally? Is that okay? The research suggests that even moderate consumption of 2 to 3 servings per week is associated with faster Parkinson's progression, while occasional consumption, such as once per month, is less concerning than daily or weekly consumption. The safest approach for someone with Parkinson's is complete elimination, given the multiple toxic mechanisms involved. What about nitrite-free or uncured processed meats? Many products marketed as natural or uncured actually still contain nitrites. They just come from celery powder or other natural sources, rather than synthetic sodium nitrite. While this may seem better, when these natural nitrites are cooked at high temperatures, they still form harmful nitrosamines. So-called uncured bacon, hot dogs, and deli meats are not meaningfully safer than conventional processed meats. What about homemade versions? If you smoke or cure meat at home, you are still creating ages through high heat and smoke exposure. And if you use salt curing, you are still getting excessive sodium. While homemade versions might avoid some commercial additives, they still pose many of the same problems as commercially processed meats. What if processed meats are deeply embedded in my cultural food traditions? I understand that food is about more than just nutrition. It is about culture, tradition, and connection. But having Parkinson's disease requires making difficult choices about prioritizing your brain health. You might consider reserving traditional processed meat dishes for very rare, special occasions rather than regular consumption, or finding ways to honor your cultural traditions with modified recipes using fresh meats instead of processed meats. What about turkey bacon or chicken sausage? Are they better? While these products are often marketed as healthier alternatives, if they are processed, cured, and contain nitrites or nitrates, they pose the same problems as traditional processed meats. The type of animal is less important than the processing methods used. Can I eat processed meats if I also eat a lot of healthy foods? Unfortunately, you cannot offset the toxic effects of processed meats simply by eating more vegetables or taking supplements. While a healthy overall diet certainly helps, the specific compounds in processed meats cause harm that cannot be fully negated by other dietary factors. Elimination is the only way to avoid the harm. Before we discuss a broader dietary approach for Parkinson's beyond just eliminating processed meats, I want to extend a special invitation to you. If you have Parkinson's disease and you are looking for evidence-based, practical information that goes beyond what your doctor has time to explain in brief appointments, this channel exists specifically for you. Here at Beyond Parkinson, we share weekly videos about dietary strategies, medication management, exercise techniques, emerging research, and practical tips for managing symptoms and slowing disease progression. Click the subscribe button right now. It is completely free And by subscribing, you ensure you will not miss crucial information that could change the trajectory of your disease and improve your quality of life. Now let us talk about the bigger picture of what to eat when you have Parkinson's disease. While eliminating processed meats is the single most important dietary change you can make if you have been consuming them, a comprehensive dietary approach offers the best chance of slowing progression and maintaining quality of life. The diet that has the strongest evidence for Parkinson's disease is what researchers call a Mediterranean style or MIND diet, which emphasizes vegetables, especially leafy greens, berries, and other fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts and seeds, fatty fish, olive oil, and herbs and spices. This dietary pattern is associated with reduced Parkinson's risk, slower disease progression, better maintained cognitive function, and better overall outcomes. Let me give you a practical framework for eating to support your brain health with Parkinson's disease. Emphasize these foods daily. At least 3 servings of vegetables, especially leafy greens like spinach, kale, and chard. 1 to 2 servings of berries, particularly blueberries, strawberries, and blackberries. 2 to 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. 1 to 2 servings of nuts or seeds. Green tea, which contains neuroprotective compounds. And herbs and spices, especially turmeric, ginger, and cinnamon. Include these foods regularly. Fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, or sardines 3 to 4 times per week. Legumes like beans, lentils, or chickpeas several times per week. Whole grains like quinoa, brown rice, or oats. Fresh poultry or eggs several times per week. And fermented foods like yogurt, kefir, or sauerkraut to support gut health. Minimize or avoid these foods. Processed meats, as we discussed. Eliminate completely processed and packaged foods high in added sugars, refined carbohydrates, and artificial ingredients. Fried foods which create toxic compounds similar to those in processed meats. Excessive red meat, limiting to once or twice per week at most. And high-fat dairy, though fermented dairy like yogurt in moderation, is acceptable. A sample day of eating for optimal Parkinson's brain health might look like this. For breakfast, vegetable omelette with spinach and tomatoes cooked in olive oil, a side of berries, and green tea with lemon. For a mid-morning snack, a handful of walnuts or almonds. For lunch, large salad with mixed greens, vegetables, chickpeas, and grilled chicken or salmon, dressed with olive oil and lemon juice, with a side of fresh fruit. For an afternoon snack, fresh vegetables with hummus, or an apple with almond butter. For dinner, baked or grilled fish with roasted vegetables seasoned with herbs and olive oil, a side of quinoa or brown rice, and a small piece of dark chocolate for dessert. Throughout the day, drink plenty of water and green tea. This type of eating pattern provides your brain with anti-inflammatory compounds from vegetables and olive oil, antioxidants from berries and other colorful produce, healthy fats from fish, nuts, and olive oil that support brain cell membranes, fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria, and minimal exposure to the toxic compounds that accelerate neurodegeneration. Beyond eliminating processed meats and following an overall healthy dietary pattern, several specific nutritional strategies deserve special mention for Parkinson's patients. First, protein timing relative to levodopa medication is crucial. As we discussed in previous videos, protein competes with levodopa for absorption. Many patients benefit from a protein redistribution approach where they eat minimal protein at breakfast and lunch to maximize medication effectiveness during the day and consume most of their protein at dinner when motor demands are typically lower. Second, stay very well hydrated. Dehydration worsens virtually every Parkinson's symptom, including constipation, fatigue, cognitive function, and blood pressure problems. Aim for 8 to 10 glasses of water daily, unless your doctor has given you different guidance. Third, consider the role of caffeine. Moderate caffeine intake from coffee or tea has been associated with reduced Parkinson's risk in epidemiological studies and may have modest benefits for some patients. However, caffeine can worsen tremors in some people, so pay attention to your individual response. Fourth, ensure adequate vitamin D levels. Vitamin D deficiency is very common in Parkinson's patients and has been linked to faster progression and worse outcomes. Have your levels checked and supplement if needed under medical supervision. Fifth, consider the potential role of specific supplements that have some evidence in Parkinson's, including coenzyme Q10, vitamin E, omega-3 fatty acids, if you do not eat enough fatty fish, and curcumin from turmeric. though always discuss supplements with your healthcare team, as some can interact with medications. Most importantly, remember that consistency matters more than perfection. You do not need to have a perfect diet every single day, but the choices you make repeatedly over time, day after day, week after week, month after month, will either accelerate or slow your disease progression. Eliminating processed meats is the single most impactful change you can make if you have been consuming them regularly. The evidence is simply too strong and the mechanisms too clear to justify continuing to eat foods that are directly accelerating the death of your dopamine neurons, worsening your gut health, increasing brain inflammation, and speeding your cognitive decline. I know this information may be difficult to hear, especially if processed meats have been a regular part of your diet. Change is hard, and giving up familiar foods feels like one more loss in a disease that already involves so many losses. But I encourage you to reframe this as a gain, not a loss. By eliminating processed meats, you are gaining better disease control. You are gaining slower progression. You are gaining better preserved cognitive function. You are gaining more good days and fewer bad days. You are gaining more time, feeling like yourself. These gains are worth far more than the temporary taste pleasure of bacon or a deli sandwich. Your brain and your future self will thank you for making this change today. If this video has provided valuable information that helps you understand the critical importance of eliminating processed meats from your diet, I want to invite you to join our supportive community here at Beyond Parkinson. Living with Parkinson's disease is challenging enough without accurate, detailed information about how to protect your brain and slow disease progression through dietary choices. By subscribing to the Beyond Parkinson channel, you will receive weekly videos covering medication strategies, dietary approaches, exercise protocols, emerging treatments, practical tips for daily living, and the latest research explained clearly. Our commitment is to provide information that is evidence-based, thorough, clearly explained, and immediately actionable. Many of our subscribers report that implementing the strategies learned here has made a significant difference in their symptom control, disease progression, and overall quality of life. To subscribe, simply click the subscribe button below this video and click the notification bell to be alerted when we publish new content each week. Remember, you are not alone in this journey with Parkinson's disease, and the choices you make every day, including what you choose to eat, have real and meaningful impacts on your disease trajectory and quality of life. You now know that processed meats are uniquely harmful for Parkinson's disease through multiple mechanisms including age toxicity, nitrosamine formation, excessive sodium, heavy metal contamination, and gut microbiome destruction. You know that eliminating processed meats completely is not a suggestion, but a necessity if you want to give yourself the best chance of slowing progression and preserving cognitive function. You know what to eat instead: fresh, whole protein sources along with an overall Mediterranean-style dietary pattern. The question now is, what will you choose to do with this information? Change is difficult, but it is also possible, and the potential benefits are enormous. I encourage you to start today, right now. Go through your refrigerator and pantry and remove all processed meats. Make a commitment to yourself and your brain health that you will not purchase these products again. Find recipes and meal ideas using fresh, whole foods that you enjoy. Give yourself time to adjust to new eating patterns and notice how you feel as the weeks and months pass. Many people report that once they eliminate processed meats for several weeks, they lose their cravings for these foods and actually feel better without them. Your taste preferences can and will adapt. Most importantly, remember that every meal is an opportunity to either harm or help your brain. Every time you choose fresh fish instead of bacon, a homemade chicken salad instead of deli meat, or grilled vegetables instead of sausage, you are making a choice that protects your dopamine neurons, supports your gut health, reduces brain inflammation, and gives you a better chance of maintaining your cognitive function and quality of life. These choices add up over time, and the cumulative effect can be the difference between faster and slower disease progression. Thank you for trusting us with your time and attention today. We hope this information empowers you to make choices that support your brain health and improve your outcomes with Parkinson's disease. We look forward to seeing you in our next video, where we will continue exploring evidence-based strategies for living better and longer with this challenging condition. Take very good care of yourself. Honor your body and your brain by feeding them foods that heal rather than harm. And remember that you have more control over your disease trajectory than you might think. The power is in your hands, and it starts with the choices you make today about what you will and will not put on your plate. Eliminate processed meats today, not tomorrow, not next week, but today, and begin the journey toward better brain health and a brighter future with Parkinson's disease.